Well, good evening. I'm going to call this January 9th session of the Salem City Council to order. And if the recorder would please call the roll.
Councillor Keizer?
She's in the building.
In the restroom.
Councillor Anderson?
Present.
Councillor Nanke?
Here.
Councillor McCoy?
Here.
Councillor Ossick?
Here.
Councillor Cook? Here. Councillor Lewis?
Here.
Mayor Bennett?
Here.
Councillor Keizer?
We'll take just a second here. If you'd like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councillor Keizer?
Great, well, we're all here. Well, welcome everyone. This is our first meeting with a new mayor and 3 new councilors, so cut us some slack a little. Let's all be thoughtful of others' feelings as we go ahead here. With that in mind, we're going to take our first order of business, which is the election of the council president. Councillor Lewis.
No, it's not me. I nominate Councillor McCoy to be council president for 2017.
Second.
Are there any further nominations for council president? Why don't we just elect Councillor McCoy by unanimous consent? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great. Councillor McCoy, congratulations again. You're the first among equals here. So that means you get to start moving forward with the agenda. Would you like to make a motion on approval of additions and deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor. I move approval additions to the agenda.
Second. Cigars isn't here.
That's right. I'm just wanting to see who's going to be the second. Seconded by Councillor Nanke. Any discussion or questions? Yes.
Announce tell the folks what those additions are. We've got some appointments that the city council are typically the commissioners for the housing authority. We have 3 new city councilors. So we've added under resolutions item 3.2A, which will appoint the 4 councilors who were sworn in last week to serve on the Housing Authority Commission as commissioners. We've got a revised ward number in 3.3D, which has to do with the rehabilitation of Yaquino Hall for affordable housing. It was placed in the wrong ward, and we replaced it in the right ward, which is Ward 2 and Councillor Anderson. And then under 3.3H, revised fiscal year 2017-18 City of Salem budget calendar. We've revised the report and included an attachment that wasn't previously included.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I have a point of order. Aren't we in the Housing Authority meeting or are we in the council meeting?
No, we're in council meeting right now.
Okay.
We'll do Housing Authority.
Oh,
later.
see, so you should cut me some slack too, even though it's
I know,
start of
no,
my 3rd year.
This can get very confusing
Yeah,
when we
okay.
get going here. I understand. Are there any questions or comments on, okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Now, this is a moment for councilors, the mayor and city manager to make comments. Do any councilors have comments? Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I just want to welcome and congratulate the 3 new councilors. Kara Keizer, Ward 1, Matt Ossick, Ward 5, Sally Cook, Ward 7, and also you, Mr. Mayor. It's going to be, I almost said Madam Mayor earlier when I was trying to do something, but I'll get,
You're really messing with
yeah,
me.
I'll get Mr. Mayor ready, but I look forward to the next 2 years serving with the 3 new councilors and the new mayor.
And a returning Ward 3 councilor.
Oh, no, I'm tired of everybody else.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilor McCoy?
Since we last met, we had went to the menorah lighting on the corner of Commercial and, what is that, is Trade? Which was really enlightening and enjoyable. Had a great time, and we struggled in a stiff wind and about 32-degree temperatures to light the actual sort of lanterns with a hurricane glass on them, and the rabbi got it done, but it took a few times as the wind kept blowing out our candles. We had to keep relighting them, but heard the story of that. You could tell it was a great turnout. I would say there was well over 100 people there from the community, both Jewish community and I think just citizens like us learning what was going on, and it was great fun. I enjoyed it immensely, learned a lot, and thought it was just a great addition to the holiday season here in Salem, and that's something that's going to go on moving forward with that lighting. So it's a great deal.
Yeah, certainly second your comments on that. That was a really enjoyable.
And I third it, Mr. Mayor, as the 3 of us were all the people that were there.
Well, next year we'll have hopefully all 9 of us out for this. It was a really enjoyable evening. Any other comments? I have one. I responded to the invitation from the Salem Fire Department to attend the Recruit Academy graduation and promotional ceremony on Friday. We now have 9 new recruits. This is that are laterals. They've been somewhere else working as firefighters, EMTs, and they have joined the Salem Fire Department. They're moving here or they live in the area. This is a function of our work last budget cycle when we decided to reopen Station 8. That's where they don't all go there, but it results in having available personnel now to have that station in far northeast Salem in Councilor Ossick's ward open. And as you go through the discussion of our patterns of calls in Salem this year, I think you'll see the reason this decision was made. So it was a very interesting ceremony. We had a chance to have the pipe and drum corps again. Yeah, we're going to trot them out regularly. Ossick, it's your. They were very good. It's a really well done. Particularly enjoyed the comments from Chief Niblock. So I would recommend, if you have a chance to do that in the future, to join in that. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Over the weekend, we received 1 to 3 inches of snow, depending upon the location in Salem, followed by freezing rain. And I want to thank the city crews who were out salting, sanding, and plowing. We were running from 10 a.m. Saturday through nonstop through Sunday afternoon until about 5:30 p.m. Also, I want to recognize and thank the volunteers that have been helping with the warming shelter. And we're not through with winter yet. The Community Action Network is planning on opening the warming center again on Wednesday, and volunteers are needed. It's a volunteer program, and the shelter is only available if there are volunteers to help those who are in need. If you're interested in helping or know of people helping to help spread the word, please go to the city's Facebook page for additional information. Again, that will be starting Wednesday and is right now forecasted to go through Friday. So we really need some volunteer help. Thank you. Certainly. Chief, do you have an introduction to make?
Your new deputy.
Let me get the right microphone here. Mike Niblock, Fire Chief, City Council, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Gabe Bimusa is our new Deputy Chief of Training in EMS, and we are very privileged to have retained his services, and he's been here a couple months and has done a lot of great things. And if you need any translation services, Gabe speaks 6 languages. So he's, I can barely speak one, so I don't know how he does it, but he does speak numerous languages. So we're really looking to get him plugged into the community and use those skills.
Great, thank you, Chief. Okay, anyone else? Comments? All righty. I'm pretty excited. This is my first proclamation, so hang with me here. I have a proclamation this evening. I'd like to invite up representatives from the Salem Public Library Foundation, Kate Van Umerson, Judy Martin, Ellen Stevens, and Shane Griggs. You all come up. And from the Public Library, Christopher Rumbaugh. Thanks, Christopher. Okay, this proclamation is regarding Salem Reads, for those of you who've been following this. Whereas in January and February of 2017, the Salem Public Library Foundation is sponsoring the first ever community reading program in the Salem area, Salem Reads, One Book, One Community. And whereas the purpose of Salem Reads is to encourage everyone in Salem to come together through the reading, discussion, and programs based on the theme of one book. And whereas the foundation has selected Spare Parts by Joshua Davis for the inaugural Salem Reads, the true story of 4 undocumented, impoverished high school students who, with inspirational teachers, take on MIT and other university teams on a national underwater robotics competition. And whereas in selecting Spare Parts, the foundation hopes to engage the community in reading and conversation around important issues of equal opportunity, immigration, human potential, and quality education. And whereas the culminating event, Salem Reads, will be the appearance of author Joshua Davis in Salem on February 21st, 2017 at Laux Auditorium. And whereas Salem Reads has received major sponsorship and support from the Oregon Community Foundation, Library Advisory Board, Capital Toyota, Robert Well, CFP Ameriprise Financial, Salem Foundation, Salem Public Library, the Friends of the Salem Public Library, and the City of Salem. And now, therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of Salem, declare the month of February as Salem Reads Month and encourage everyone in Salem to join me in reading Spare Parts by Joshua Davis and participating in conversation and programs at the Salem Public Library in January and February. Dated this 9th day of January 2017, Chuck Bennett, Mayor. So, and here is a copy of the proclamation. And if you have any comments, any of you like to say anything? Really?
Come on, Shane and Ellen, get in there.
Gotta get in for the photo. I'm a reader.
Get my visual here. Okay. Well, I had planned some comments, but after the proclamation, some of these are redundant, so I'll skip through. We have been planning this for over a year. The foundation spearheaded Salem Public Library Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that supplements the budget of the library, basically, and provides programming and things like remodeling the children's room and so forth. So this is our biggest project ever that we've done in terms of programs. And it amazed us that Salem had never done a community-wide reading program before. Most communities this size do have them, have had them. For Bend has had like 15 years. So this is the first of many years for us. And we were very fortunate to have a very generous grant of $25,000 from the Oregon Community Foundation, their program for public library innovation. And we think that we have a person representing the foundation here, Shane Griggs, and we certainly appreciate that very much. We could not have done this without that seed money. We are doing things like on the 22nd, do I have that right? We have a book giveaway. So if you go to the library on the 22nd, which is a Sunday, tell your friends, tell especially your underfunded friends, that we are giving away books. We are giving away copies, 500 copies of this book, Spare Parts. We encourage the council and everybody in the room to read the book. If you go and get a free one at the book giveaway, that's great. If not, just check one out at the library or go to the Friends store and buy one, or the book bin and other places. Other programs, we have this very extensive 2-month calendar of programs. Lots and lots of things going on. We have piles of these in the back. Pick one up as you go out. And we hope that you'll put these programs on your calendars and attend as many of them as possible. The author's lecture, as was pointed out, is February 21st. You'll need to get tickets at the library January 31st to attend that lecture. And there will be a wonderful artist reception on that same day, January 31st, that will let you see local artist interpretations of the book. And that will be a lot of fun to see what they make of Stinky the Robot or these 4 charming high school kids and their wonderful teachers. So we hope that hundreds and hundreds of Salem residents will read this book, discuss this book around your book group tables, around your dining room tables, at your coffee shops, and encourage your friends to do the same. We believe that the city of Salem is opening, and by opening the same book at the same time, will close the book in greater harmony. Thank you very much for the honor of this proclamation.
Well, thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to? Great. Thank you very much. It sounds like it's going to be a great program. Thank you.
We're just going to do the entire council meeting first.
Yeah.
All righty, it's time for public comment. This is for an opportunity for the public to comment on issues or on agenda items other than public hearings or deliberations. So it's just other issues other than those specifically listed under public hearings. You'll have your chance to speak on those at the time of the public hearing. What I would ask, you're welcome, there's 5 people signed up. You each have 3 minutes. I'd ask you to, when the red light comes on, please just stop talking. And the council, if they have questions, will certainly be asking them. And please introduce yourself, and if you can, your ward or address or part of town. So first person up is, darn.
The first name of the year.
I apologize, I can't really tell the first name, but it's Davidson Crookshank. There we go. I apologize, I just couldn't tell your first name.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to
Please
speak.
introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Brittany Davidson. I live at 6276 Nicholas Loop in Keizer, Oregon. I'd like to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am here speaking on behalf of Center 50 Plus, and our president was unable to attend, Ron Rebel, so I am here as the vice president on his behalf. I'm a customer service supervisor at Salem Electric, and I want to thank the council for your continued support of Center 50 Plus and its mission to provide life-enriching opportunities for adults age 50 and over through activities, services, and involvement in the community. Tonight, the council will be seeing the annual report from Center 50 Plus. A few highlights include an increase to the center's daily average attendance and numerous classes and services being offered at the center. But beyond statistics, program numbers, and dollars, why do we exist? Well, that's easy. We're here to keep people connected. Take a minute and imagine life after retirement. No commute, no daily interaction with coworkers, no timeline for completing everyday tasks. For some, it can be a difficult adjustment to figure out who they are after retirement, and that's where Center 50 Plus steps in. Center 50 Plus offers fitness classes, lifelong learning courses, and helps patrons create new personal goals and achieve lifelong dreams. Friendships are created along the way, which add to the richness and belonging people feel at Center 50 Plus. Patrons of Center 50 Plus are no stranger to volunteering. Last year, our volunteers volunteered over 83,000 hours. Our volunteer workforce is comprised of 500 people, which support over 200 different programs. Fundraising by the Friends Group continues to be successful, contributing 18% of the center's operating revenue. Center 50 Plus started Act Now, a community action team made up of more than 85 volunteers to help with community activities. The program saw great success this year, helping at 29 community events for 20 different nonprofit organizations. Business sponsorships and agency partners allow us to keep patrons engaged in the center, offering a variety of new activities from concerts to Christmas Eve dinners. As you can tell at the center, we don't stop. This year, we will participate in the OSU Extension and local schools on an intergenerational walking route assessment grant, which will pair a senior volunteer with an elementary student to walk through neighborhoods, evaluating walking plans, accessibility, and safety for neighborhoods to connect to their local schools on foot. We will continue to offer programming to improve brain health and balance, as well as launch an online registration program and implement a comprehensive volunteer management program. At Center 50 Plus, we recognize it takes a lifetime to get this young, and we are honored that nearly 11,000 patrons visited our center last year. We look forward to serving even more patrons in 2017. Thank you for your continued support.
Great job. Thank you. Good time. Greg Astley.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett, councilors. Thank you very much. My name is Greg Astley. My business address is 8565 Southwest Salish Lane, Suite 120, Wilsonville, Oregon 97070. I'm here tonight as the Director of Government Affairs for the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on the ride-sharing services that the mayor has proposed for the city of Salem. Although I am here as a representative of the restaurant and lodging industry, I'm a longtime resident of the city of Salem and a supporter of these services. For the hospitality industry, though, ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft provide important and safe transportation options for residents and tourists alike. And as we see it, there are really three key areas where ride-sharing is important for our community. The first is that ride-sharing, we believe, would make Salem more livable. Salem is becoming a city where more options are available for nighttime activities, especially in the downtown area. And they're being encouraged by providing on-demand private transportation options to Salem residents. More people would be willing to consider going out at night and enjoying themselves in our downtown area or really anywhere in Salem. For visitors, the demand for ride-sharing is growing, and it's grown to the point that many hotel customers have come to expect that shared services like Uber and Lyft would be available wherever they're going to be staying. And in fact, many of them will look for that in a community where they're going to stay. For larger events, we have seen improved attendance. Where our members take part, like the Bite of Portland, ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft are great for people to get to and from an event like that without having to stress the parking and without having to worry about either paying for parking or parking and then walking to where they need to go. Number two, we believe that ride-sharing will make Salem safer. For folks that do go out on the town at night, especially to restaurants and bars and taverns, they may have a drink or two. And although our members and other restaurant owners are very responsible in how much they give people, there's always the opportunity for problems to occur. And so people make that responsible choice to call an on-demand service like Uber or Lyft. They get home safely. Everybody's a winner. Finally, ride sharing helps to support our industry. And as job providers, nonprofit supporters, and an economic driver for the area, restaurants and lodging properties are an important part of the fabric of the Salem community. By bringing ride sharing to Salem, you'll take an action that is supportive of our industry and would be helpful to our local restaurants, bars, and hotels. And for those reasons, we would strongly encourage you to support the mayor's initiative to bring the ride sharing to Salem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Astley. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aaron Wakefield.
Hello. Hi, good evening. My name is Erin Wakefield, and I'm come here tonight to represent Willamette Valley Yellow Cab in regards to the ride-sharing services. I appreciate your time to hear tonight. So I come kind of as an insider with a little bit of insight to what Salem uses as far as transportation. We are the biggest cab company in Salem, and we deal with a lot of people in the middle of the night who want to go home from bars or different restaurants and stuff like that in town. And at this time, we employ, about 100 people a year, that mostly all local people that live here, and we're always hiring. So if you know of anybody looking, we're hiring. But on a Tuesday night in Salem, we have about 13 cars out there, and we have about 7 of them sitting waiting for cabs, waiting for rides. So we don't have like we're not having people waiting a long time for their rides. They're ordering a cab and they're getting there as soon as they can, just the distance that it takes to get to them. So while we appreciate rideshare services, we don't really feel like there's a huge need, especially on those evenings, in Salem, Tuesday, Sunday evenings and stuff. So my concern also is that Uber and rideshare programs are not ADA compliant services. I appreciate that they can call somebody to be ADA compliant, but they're not. They don't offer wheelchair transportation like we do. We have it 24/7 hours a day. We also donate our services for like the warming centers, and which we've just done this past through all the cold weather and stuff. I'm sorry, I'm nervous, but we donate all of our services for warming shelters, homeless shelters, and we also have a free ride home program in case anybody has a little bit too much to drink and forgot to bring their money or something like that. So we don't want anybody not, drinking out there. And I don't feel like Uber would be a company to just give free rides home if people are drunk, but I don't know on that. So I just wanted to get up here and share a little bit about what it would mean for our cab company to lose all of those jobs that pay into your state taxes and that employ people such as ourselves every single day. And we just hope that you'll take that all into consideration.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the work you've been doing with the warming shelters. That really has been really quite good.
Yeah.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for coming down. I want to talk a little bit about, you were talking about the 100 jobs and people pay taxes. How do you pay? Are your cab drivers, are they employees? Are they independent contractors? How do they get paid?
They're employees.
Okay.
All of our drivers are employees, and they pay taxes every night.
So you're filling out they fill out a W-2 form, and then you report their taxes at the end of the year?
Correct.
And they pay taxes on that?
Correct.
So they get an hourly wage plus a percentage of the ride, or just a straight hourly
We
wage?
have a combination of both. We get, some of our drivers are paid hourly wages, and some of them are paid just a commission fee.
Okay.
Of which that is, they're paid the taxes from that commission.
Okay. So you have a way, let's say they're on a straight commission. Obviously, if you're paying them a salary, you know what you're paying them. If
Right.
they're on a straight commission, how do you keep track of what they make?
So what we do is they have a bracket that we follow for the Oregon taxes bracket, and it depends on how much they made. They pay a percentage on that based upon their withholdings.
Okay, and can you somehow check their meter to determine that so they're not shorting you on what they pay?
Absolutely, yes, we do.
Okay,
We do
Okay,
it, yeah.
so the meter keeps track of their.
It's actually the app, the
Okay, or something.
dispatch system that we use.
See, I'm living in the dark ages if I call it the
Yeah.
meter. You have apps then too?
We do use an app.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a rideshare app that anybody can download and use. It's called GATA, G-A-T-A, Get a Taxi Anywhere. And
Okay.
it's a free app that anybody can use.
Okay.
Little plug there.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis.
Thanks for coming down. I'm curious, the taxis that your drivers drive, are they company-owned or individual-owned?
Company-owned.
And how many do you have in your fleet?
29.
Thank you.
Councilor Keizer.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, what's the process to become employed with Willamette Valley Cab? Do you conduct background checks, things like that?
Correct. Yeah, so the first thing that an employee does when they come in, fill out an application, we interview them and make sure that they're going to fit their qualifications for our job as far as customer service and presentation, and then we send them down here to the to the city hall permits building, and they all pay $82.50 that they have to pay every single year in order to get the background check. And then we also provide student transportation, and those drivers, in addition to that background check, also need to go get what's code 10 background check as well.
Okay, and I'm going to remind everyone, be sure to speak into your mic. Get up kind of close
sorry.
and speak into your mic, or they can't hear your comments or questions at home.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. I had a question about the training. Kara mentioned the background checks, and you had also mentioned the ADA compliance with the vehicles. Is there any additional training? I just am thinking about bus drivers and how they have anti-bullying training, recognizing different emergency situations or potential conflicts. Can you describe some of the trainings cabbies receive?
Yes, so all of our drivers go through what's called a passenger assistance training. So it goes through like disability awareness and passenger assistance. It's a 16-hour course, so it goes over the course of 2 days. I'm actually a trainer for it. And then Lee does defensive driving training, and so they all go through that. They also are all first aid, CPR, and bloodborne pathogen trained.
Okay. Any further questions?
Did I answer
Councilor
that?
McCoy.
Back to the app. So does the app work sort of like the Uber app?
Absolutely, it does.
You know, they can look up and see where the nearest cab is?
Yes, and it
Do you
can track
dispatch
them.
the cab, or does the cab?
It's either or. If they're close enough, it dispatches them automatically. But if it's more than like 2 miles away, then the dispatcher picks which driver they send it to.
Okay.
But yeah, it's free. They can use their credit card to pay online on the app.
So they can, when they sign up for the app, it's the same kind of a deal. They can
Absolutely.
enter a credit card and they get billed
Yes.
for it the same way.
Mhm.
Had one other question, but I'm old and I forgot it, so I'll quit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lee Lynch. Lee Lynch? There you go.
Well, my name is Lee Lynch, and I live at 3043 Hamel Northeast, Salem, Oregon. And obviously, I'm with Willamette Valley Yellow Cab. I'm the general manager, and I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for bringing up this wonderful, wonderful, exciting time of competition. I love it, and we down at the cab company are getting very excited about the competition. We think that the ride share program is not just about a cab company. It's about transportation, but it's not just about transportation. I really believe it's a paradigm shift. And whenever you think about cabs, the first thing that comes to your mind is Uber and Lyft, and what are they doing to the traditional taxi cab company? Well, unlike the traditional taxi cab companies that would want to fight Uber and keep them out, we welcome them. I do. However, and there is a big but here, the big but is this, and it's probably, we haven't figured it all out yet. However, our drivers spend about $5,000 a year that we give to the city just for that background check and that assurance that the people that drive our cabs and serve this community are good, clean, safe drivers. Now, they're not always good, clean, safe drivers, but we weed them out. We weed them out through the city, and we weed them out through the training. So that's one thing that I have a little question about. Are the Uber drivers going to be able to go through the same background check as our drivers and other cab companies in town? I don't know. It'll be exciting to see what happens. Also, commercial insurance. Oh my goodness gracious. The commercial rates. It is crazy out there when you start looking at commercial insurances for fleet vehicles. So I'm just wondering, are Uber drivers going to be covered with a commercial insurance? If something happens, will the clients be served? Will there be insurance for the person if somebody gets into an accident? Anyway, that's just some of the many questions I have, and I'm sure that a lot of these issues will be coming up in the future. So I thank you all very much for having Aaron and I up here to speak, because like I said, we love the competition. However, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Is there any questions? Councilor McCoy.
Remembered one of my questions. So, Lee, so these folks are employees of yours. So you're then paying workers' comp insurance,
Absolutely.
unemployment insurance,
Absolutely.
all those taxes that a typical employer would pay.
Absolutely.
And then you mentioned that it was $5,000 and I think you said a driver at the start of your
It's by the time we are done, by the time all of our drivers go through the city and pay their license. Now, sometimes they'll pay their license and they'll quit 2 or 3 months later, but then they'll come back. But in total, it's about $5,000 that our drivers spend at the city to get these taxi cab permits.
So, okay, so I heard $82.50 for a
Oh,
background
that's each.
check.
But you got to think about all the people that come down there. That's $82.50 each. I mean,
So you're talking your whole, all your
Yes.
drivers together is $5,000.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I even pay that.
I thought it was $5,000 a driver, and I had a big question
No,
mark
no,
in my
no.
head. Yeah, that would be expensive.
Just too much of a good thing there. Thank you, Mr. Lynch, very
Okay.
much. Boyce Bennett.
Good evening. My name is Bryce Bennett. I'm the general manager for Uber here in Oregon. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening, to Mayor Bennett and the council. I appreciate your time to address the agenda item 5A. I think first and foremost, we want to give kind of an essential Uber 101 here, because I think there's a few things we would want to clear the air on, a few myths that have existed out there for a while over the course of the past few years and our limited time here in Salem. I think first and foremost, it's important to understand that Uber is a technology company. We connect riders and drivers who need to get from point A to B, and we use a smartphone application to do so. We build these networks so riders can get a trip in a matter of minutes, whether you're in a densely urban populated area or maybe a more suburban area. On the driver's side, drivers are able to come onto the platform and make money on their schedule, on their flexibility. And we a lot of our work on the operations and marketing side is to connect them with as many riders as possible. I think it's important also to understand what Uber is not, and it is not a taxi. Taxis can wait outside of hotels and airports. They can be hailed from the curb. They take cash. With Uber, the riders and drivers can only be connected through the smartphone application itself, through a credit card transaction. Additionally, our quality control measures are through a two-sided feedback system where the riders and drivers rate each other. We support the drivers and actually cover the upfront costs of them coming onto the platform, such as the background check, by putting them through an onboarding process, which includes, like I mentioned, a background check, a 7-year federal multi-state Social Security trace, as well as a 3-year motor vehicle record check. Additionally, we have a 19-point vehicle inspection, and we partner typically with mechanic shops in the towns and cities that we work with to do that. Additionally, we provide comprehensive commercial auto liability coverage while they're on the platform. Here in the Northwest, Uber now operates in almost a dozen cities between Montana, Washington, and Oregon and Idaho. including Kennewick, Spokane, Boise, and Missoula. In Oregon alone, we have over 300,000 riders with an additional over 5,000 drivers in the Portland metro area. We're working with local institutions like TriMet, the Portland Police Bureau, the Portland Timbers Trailblazers, and organizations like Oregon Impact and Mothers Against Drunk Driving that work to prevent and reduce impaired driving on the streets of Oregon. Just this New Year's Eve, about a week ago, we completed over 30,000 rides in the Portland metro area, getting people home safely. While we have a history in Salem here that we would like to continue to work to improve, we would, if given the opportunity, like to return to the Salem area and appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you for coming down. We know you've been here before a year or so ago, and I had a meeting with one of your people, and I appreciated that understand. I've got a couple questions.
Yep.
It sounds like you do your own background checks?
So, Councilman, we work with a third-party background check provider, and they do nationwide the background checks called Checker.
Okay,
I'm
so
happy to provide you more information as well.
No, you provided enough in that you told me it's not the police department. Then you just indicated you have 5,000 drivers in Portland?
In the Portland metro area, yes.
And are you paying insurance for each one of those 5,000 drivers?
So how our insurance works is anytime someone is logged on to the app to the time they log off, we provide primary commercial insurance.
And what's the limit? So I take it that's a yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Then what are the limits?
So the limits are divided up by 3 periods. The first period is when someone's on the application but has not been connected with a rider or a request yet. At that point, we carry $50,000 per accident, or $50,000 per person, $100,000 per accident.
So you're basically covering the driver?
I'm sorry?
You're basically covering the driver until they pick somebody up?
At the time that they're connected to a ride, then they have $1 million of liability coverage.
Excuse me, does connected to a ride mean pick them up?
That means as soon as they accept the ride on their application.
Okay, okay. When do they get connected to the actual customer?
You mean when does the customer actually step in the vehicle? Or?
Well, does the insurance go up at that point?
At that point, it remains $1 million of liability
Okay,
coverage. As soon as they're connected to the time
It's the
someone
same.
gets out.
Okay, okay. Now, everybody's saying this, believe me, and that you may have heard that statement in the United States political scene lately. So, you know, there is talk that your Uber comes in and artificially lowers the prices to drive out the competition, and then you've got a free field. Is there any truth to that?
Actually, if you look just north of Portland, we actually work with 2 cab companies there, and they have access to the platform in the same way that UberX riders, our drivers, do.
Okay.
Additionally, we've also seen that cab rides have not gone down in the Portland metro area in the most recent study released this past summer.
Okay. And then I'm a little curious as to, I think the term is surge pricing. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so so for drivers, it's important to know that they take home 75% of every calculated fare. And so during times of peak demand, say bar break on a Friday, Saturday night, or a big event in town, dynamic price or surge pricing is a way to attract more drivers to the area to get people home when they really do need a ride.
And then finally, you're not paying any of these drivers yourself. They just are working on the commission.
So, yeah, we will calculate the rate on each trip, and then they take 75%.
Thank you.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. Bennett, for coming down tonight. I just had a couple of questions. So to kind of piggyback off Councilor Anderson, there's no umbrella policy for the rider when they're in the Uber vehicle. The insurance is purely on the driver?
No. The liability coverage covers the rider during that time when they're in the vehicle.
So the
up to
minute
$1 million.
they're on the app as well, they're covered, even if the ride hasn't picked them up yet?
You're saying the ride...
The minute that they're...
The minute they're connected, the vehicle...
Connected being on my phone, connected being in the vehicle?
Connected being they've accepted the request, the driver has, and they're on the way to pick up the rider.
Okay, and can you tell me some of the steps that Uber has taken to ensure equity as far as making sure that everyone in the vicinity has equal access, whether it's with ADA compliance or socioeconomic barriers. What steps are you taking?
Yeah, so we've actually worked extensively in the city of Portland with a couple of partners, specifically First Transit, to provide 24/7 wheelchair accessible vehicle coverage there. Additionally, we've actually, it's actually been shown that in some of the early PBOT data reports that we serve Southeast Portland better than any prior point-to-point transportation option.
And you'd mentioned you also work with taxi companies to use platforms. Have you talked with the Salem Yellow Cab about using particular platforms yet? Have you reached out at all?
We have not had the opportunity to do so, no, not yet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Mr. Brandt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify on any issue other than a public hearing issue this evening? Okay, thank you very much. Where are we now? The consent, who we got? Oh, yeah, come on down. If you'll just introduce yourself, your ward, what you'd like to talk about, and then just talk at us.
Thank you. My name is Mo Adham. My name is Moyet Adham. I go by Mo. I volunteer on the Commission of Human Rights and Relations. At the same time, I'm a Salem resident, 1065 Liberty Street Southeast. I have two comments, actually, one for Uber and the other one for Willamette Valley Yellow Cab. If we would first start with Willamette Valley Yellow Cab, personally, I'm all for local businesses. I like to support local businesses here in town. However, when you started talking about the services that you provide, I was wondering, how long does it take to send a cab to a person on a weekend night, on a Saturday night, for example? Because
I'm afraid he won't be able to answer.
Right, right.
But I think as a rhetorical question, it's very interesting. Do you know the answer?
I do, actually.
Why don't you give it to us and keep going? Yeah.
Not specifically with Willamette Valley Yellow Cab, but in general, to get a cab in Salem and in Portland, at least half an hour.
Okay.
At least.
Okay.
Where with Uber, it takes 5 minutes or less, maximum 10 minutes, as far as I'm concerned. The second thing with Willamette Valley Yellow Cab, I just checked your company on Google, and you've got 2.4 stars. And that got me wondering. Like, you were talking about the high standards of the customer service you provide, but 2.4 stars, that's significantly low, I think. It's my personal opinion.
Okay.
For Uber, I still believe that I personally still don't quite understand the insurance issue. Does that mean?
Red. When it turns red, you got a minute.
Okay.
Still got a minute.
Okay. So with Uber, I get that it's a wonderful service, but I've had few friends who have been driving for Uber up in Portland, and they've been complaining about not understanding the insurance part of the game a little bit, so to speak, and so do I. Don't understand it. So if Uber would be able to clarify that a little bit more, I would appreciate it.
Great.
And that was all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for your service on the Human
I
Rights
appreciate
Commission.
the opportunity. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, good. We'll move on then to the consent calendar. Council President McCoy, what you got?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar with the following pull, 3.3C by Councilor Cook.
Second.
You're going to be the new
Say it again.
Second. Oh, not that one? Okay.
That's it.
Got it, 3.3.
Got it. You want to run through the...
Sure. Okay, on the consent calendar tonight, we've got under, it was the addition we talked to, additions 3.2A would be a reappoint or appoint the 3 new counselors, Councilor Keizer, Cook, and Ossick, and reappoint Councilor Nanke to the Salem Housing Commission. 3.3A has to do with local marijuana tax collection agreement with the state of Oregon. The citizens of Salem approved a 3% tax on recreational marijuana that went into effect January 1st for those recreational marijuana stores that are in operation. We've got a number coming online, and we can either do it ourselves or we can contract with the state of Oregon, who's already collecting and will be collecting a 17% tax, to collect the 3% tax for a fee and avoid redundancy, avoid an extra workload on the city. So that would, this is what that's about, and entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon to do that. 3.3B appoints John B. Wilson as a municipal judge pro tempore. And John Wilson is a past district and circuit court judge, long distinguished career, and certainly is more than able to fill that position. 3.3D has to do with the rehabilitation of Yaquina Hall at the North Campus on Center Street for affordable housing. And the Urban Renewal Agency Board approved setting aside $500,000 from the fiscal year 2017-18 budget and $250,000 from the fiscal year 2018 and 19 budget from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Community Development Block Grant funds to fund the help fund the rehabilitation of that entity into 50 one-bedroom affordable housing units. So this is the council approving that and moving forward. Federal emergency 3.3E has to do with a Federal Emergency Management Agency's performance grant to support the city's emergency management program. This is a grant we've been receiving for the last 8 years, and it basically funds roughly 50% of our emergency management program, and the grant's at about $120,000. 3.3F is also has to do with a grant. In this case, it's a 2016-17 work zone enforcement grant. We'd already received a grant for, and this has to do with allowing the police department to work overtime and I want to say patrol, for lack of a better word, highway work zones to make sure that the drivers are going through there at a safe rate and enforce those work zone statutes. And we'd receive 64. There's another 15,000 that we will bring in there to make it 80,000 for the for this fiscal year. And finally, 3.3G. Is an item where we've got a home at 4932 Swagel Road Northeast that is outside this city, the city limits, but whose well is no longer working. And we've got in the city the statutes the ability to provide water services to a house in this situation that's contiguous to the boundaries of the city, as long as they fill out and apply for an annexation form and also pay all usual and customary fees and service charges involved with connecting them to the city water service. Finally, 3.3H is a revised fiscal year 2017-18 City of Salem budget calendar where we changed a few dates for meetings of the Budget Committee, 2 to a Monday to move off of a Wednesday that was causing conflicts with city councilors attending neighborhood association meetings. And that is the consent calendar, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you. I was going to say this at the Housing Authority meeting, but I'll say it now on the Yaquina Hall rehab. I think that's a terrific project, and I want to thank the Housing Department, the Salem Housing Authority, and everybody else who worked on it, Andy, to make this a reality. And these are 50 units that are very much needed, and they are in a good area of town, and it's a great use of a historic building, and so I'm very much looking forward to these coming online.
Great. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the consent calendar say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on now to public hearings. does this? Would recorder announce the public hearing then?
The City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of hearing an appeal of the Public Works Director's System Development Charge decision for a manufactured dwelling at 2277 Orchard Heights Road Northwest. The hearing will be conducted with the staff presentation first, followed by the applicant, neighborhood association, other interested persons, and applicant's rebuttal.
Yeah. We'll begin with your staff presentation then. Want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. So my name is Robin Dahlke, good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Robin Dahlke. I'm an analyst with Development Services in Public Works. I'm here to give a staff presentation for an appeal to the Public Work Director's decision. Topic tonight relates to system development charges for placement of a new manufactured dwelling. Apologize, let me get this started. Okay. The subject property is located at 2277 Orchard Heights Road. This is in West Salem, located within city limits at the intersection of Orchard Heights Road and Dokes Ferry Road. You'll see West Salem High School is to the southeast and Straub Middle School is to the east of the property. I'd like to start with some background of the existing uses of the property as they relate to this SDC appeal. In 2006, when the subject property was located in Polk County, the property owners were granted a temporary hardship variance to temporarily place a manufactured dwelling on their lot for a medical hardship. This manufactured dwelling was in addition to the existing single-family home on the property. The photo above you on the screen depicts what was existing on the property in 2006. Polk County records show that no system development charges or other type of impact fees were paid at the time of placement. In 2008, the property was annexed by the city and the existing manufactured dwelling was allowed to remain as a non-conforming use. The manufactured dwelling has since been removed and the property owners are proposing placement of a new manufactured home on their lot. As shown on the property owner's site plan, the proposed manufactured home will be attached to the existing home through construction of a breezeway, which you'll see in red. This attachment will classify the home as a duplex, which is an allowed use on this property. I'd like to briefly go over the application history as it applies to the development fee appeals process. In October of 2016, the property owners requested a permit fee estimate from Public Works for placement of the new manufactured home. A fee estimate including customary plan review and permit fees was provided, and the property owners then filed a written request for waiver of those SDC or of system development charges, not all of the plan review and permit fees, but the system development charges. Pursuant to the appeal process in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 41. On November 4th, the Public Works Director issued a decision determining the SDCs to be in accordance with the resolution and methodology used to establish the SDCs. The property owners submitted a subsequent appeal of this decision on November 15th. The appeal requires a public hearing to council to hear and consider the appeal. The basis for the applicant's appeal is the imposition of stormwater, parks, and transportation system development charges for placement of the new manufactured home. Since SDCs may be a new subject to some in the audience, I'll provide just a very brief background regarding what SDCs are and how they are calculated. First, SDCs are a funding mechanism for major infrastructure projects like major streets, water reservoirs, and new parks. New development projects generate the need for these major infrastructure systems, and SDCs allow the city to collect an incremental fee for each development project to eventually provide the funding needed for major area-wide facilities. SDCs are collected in Salem for 5 different kinds of infrastructure. water, sewer, parks, transportation, and stormwater. Each kind of SDC has a funding strategy that is called a methodology. I'll use transportation SDCs as an example of how these work. First, the transportation planner approximates the amount of growth and development that is proposed over a prolonged period of time, say 20 years. For transportation, that is measured based on daily vehicle trips, and the city's current methodology estimates an average of 10,000 new trips per year. Next, the transportation planner approximates the new infrastructure projects needed to serve the additional traffic that comes from that new development. The current methodology has established approximately $2 million in SDC expenses each year for major transportation projects. The methodology divides the $2 million in expenses by the 10,000 in new vehicle trips and results in a cost of approximately $200 per vehicle trip. Again, these numbers are approximate and only used to just demonstrate the methodology. They're close to actual costs, though. Single-family homes generate an average of 10 trips per day, so the transportation SDC for a single-family residence is around $2,000. This same type of methodology exists for all 5 kinds of infrastructure funded by SDCs. Now, applying these SDCs to our manufactured home placement on Orchard Heights, the methodologies specify that a stormwater, parks, and transportation SDC are due based on the placement of a new single-family dwelling unit. The current fee schedule establishes a per dwelling unit rate, and these fees are, again, based on a per dwelling unit, which an additional manufactured home would be considered an additional dwelling unit. Water and sewer SDCs are not due in this case because the property is served by a private well and septic system. A duplex is defined as 2 single-family dwelling units, so the additional dwelling is charged at the single-family rate. The property owners indicated that this would be a temporary living situation, but unfortunately, placement of the home does not meet the criteria for any of the temporary uses allowed by SRC Chapter 701. As such, the required building permit will be for the permanent placement of the home, with development charges based on the customary single-family rate. Our conclusion is that the proposed placement of a new manufactured dwelling will add an additional dwelling unit to the subject property. Therefore, collection of SDCs is consistent with the adopted methodologies and department policies. Staff recommends council affirm the director decision as described in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And you'll have an opportunity to ask staff questions after we move through the additional folks who are testifying. First is the appellant. Captain Chesborough, you're up. 15 minutes if you'd like to have it. What do we got?
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and City Council members, and Happy New Year to one and all. My name is Richard Chesborough, and I live at 2277 Orchard Heights, along with my wife Barbara, seated over there. And the young lady sitting next to her, pushing 80 years old, is the resident of the new manufactured home, and she's also going to be the purchaser of the new manufactured home. So we're here today to appeal the imposition of the systems development fees of over $7,000 for the placement of this new manufactured home on our 1.5-acre property. This home is being purchased by the young lady over there, who is a relative of my mother-in-law's, who is living alone. She doesn't live with anybody else. We're not talking about a family with 3 or 4 kids or anything, just a single lady, suffering from kidney failure and unfortunately brain cancer as well. And she needs caregiving support, which my wife and I will be providing her for her remaining years. Systems development fees are defined in Chapter 41 of the SRC, Ordinance 35-91, as follows, and I quote, "A systems development charge is to be considered in the nature of a charge for services rendered, a service hookup charge, or a charge for services to be rendered." Further on in the code under 41.100, C, under the definition of a development, and again I quote, any construction or any new use or occupancy which increases the usage of any capital improvement or which creates additional demand upon existing capital improvements. In our case, we see no justification for SDC fees simply because there will be no impact or usage for any city services whatsoever. As pointed out already, we have no water needs because we are on a well as well as a septic system for sewer. There are no stormwater drains on our property or anywhere near the property. There's no sewer system in the entire street there. There is no transportation available. The only bus service we had was removed when a couple of kids took out the bus place right directly across the street from us. And the caregiver will be providing transportation for her trips to the doctor or to the store or whatever. So there won't be any additional running up and down the street. She's, again, just a single woman. Recreation is not going to be enjoying the parks that are not even close to our property because her sole recreation is primarily watching TV. In 2004, we had a similar situation with my mother-in-law, as pointed out by Robin, who was also suffering from cancer, but still wanting to have her independence. So we received a hardship variance from Polk County, placed a new mobile home in that same location. The home was removed after she passed away, but all the hookups, the concrete runners, everything still remains ready to be hooked up. Our property has since been annexed into the city. However, at the same time, our taxes have risen $3,000 a year since that annexation, but there has been absolutely no change in any city services rendered to us. So if and when these city services are provided, we feel we have, in the meantime, more than paid our fair share towards these. In conclusion, we feel that by your own code definition, there is no justification for the imposition of systems development fees for this single 80-year-old relative to live out her remaining years in her own home next to Barbara and I as her caregivers. These fees simply don't apply in our case. Thank you for, did I run out of time already? I wasn't even, oh. We thank you for your consideration, and we hope to, that you will see fit to grant our appeal for a waiver. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Captain. Any questions? Councillor Lewis.
Well, first, I'm sorry if this is not the right time, but I want to disclose that I have known the captain and his wife Barbara for I won't say how many years in respect to your wife. They live in Ward 8, but I believe that I can not only make a fair and unbiased decision, but I believe I can add something to this conversation. So I'm going to do that. And Captain, I've got a couple of questions. The first one goes back to the annexation in 2008. Did you object to that annexation?
Did I object to it?
Right.
I voted no for it, that's for sure.
Okay. On the question of the dwelling unit, it's my understanding the first time this happened, you put a temporary manufactured home on the property for the single purpose of taking care of a relative.
Correct.
And when that purpose went away, the manufactured home went away.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure that you are asking for the same thing this time, that it's for an emergency, and when the emergency would go away, the dwelling would go away.
That's correct.
Okay. So you're not going to the extent of affixing the manufactured home to the property where it could be sold and somebody could get a loan on it. An unaffixed manufactured home is not, you can't get a loan on it.
We fully expect that when Sonia passes, that probably the manufactured home will be sold by one of her children. We don't know what's going to happen, obviously, in the future, but that's what we suppose will happen.
For me, the temporary aspect is the issue, not necessarily what you're concerned about or what the city has replied. And here's why I say this. The methodology that the city uses to charge STC charges is imperfect like anything else, but the option is to take it person by person and look in each and every situation and that is, quite frankly, cost prohibitive. So the city comes up with a formula or a methodology that is imperfect, yes, but fair overall. And I just want to see if you can understand that.
I looked at the annexation papers in quite detail, and believe it or not, the city said that they calculated all of our taxes and everything based on 18 people living in our one little 1.5 acres. I have no idea where that came up with. I mean, it's only been Barbara and I, and her mother when she was still alive, and and I'm sure that's so inflated that that's why the figures got so high, but it just doesn't make any sense to us. And that's without a manufactured home. I was just.
Okay. I think that's it for right now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming down, and I appreciate I can understand the issues here as how they might affect you individually. My question is, I got two of them now, one from Councilor Lewis's discussion with you. What about the breezeway? Is the breezeway temporary? Is the breezeway a permanent situation, or what's going on there?
Well, I tried when and I have submitted permits. They're in process right now with the city. I started off with just putting the breezeway on cement, little square things that a 4x4 fits into. You've probably seen them in construction, which is pretty temporary. And they said, nope, that's not going to fly. You actually have to put the cement down into the ground, which is more permanent.
So I guess it's easy. The other way to say that is you are building a breezeway in accordance with the city building code.
Yes. Yeah, we didn't have any choice with the breezeway. And that's to comply as a duplex.
Okay, so at some point it might end up being a breezeway to nowhere?
Conceivably, it could be, yes.
Okay. Then I want to go back to when you put this in when you were out in the county in 2004. Right. Did you pay any system development charges then to the county?
No. The county of Polk County has a hardship variance.
Okay.
And that's what they allowed us to put this manufactured home in.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any further? Councilor Cook? Do you have a question?
For staff.
I just can't hear. Oh, for staff, I'm sorry. Okay. Any further questions for the captain?
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. The Neighborhood Association. Anyone here from the West Salem Neighborhood Association? Okay. And do we have anyone else? Oh, that's it. Would anyone else like to testify on this matter? All right. So we now can ask questions of staff. It's a way of getting there. Councilor Cook, now do you want to ask your question now?
Oh, I would love Councilor Lewis to go first.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I've got, I think, 4 questions, but first I've got a comment if I could. And this doesn't necessarily pertain to this staff report, but others that I've seen. When you are listing attachments, attachment 1, attachment 2, if it could be possible to stamp the actual attachment with that number. Again, in this case, it's real easy to follow, but in some that I've found myself searching through the papers trying to figure out which is attachment A and which is attachment B. So if it could be labeled, I think it would make it easier for me and maybe somebody else. First question. In your mind, how does the situation that is before us tonight different from the situation that was in front of Marion County a number of years ago?
Polk.
Polk County?
Polk County, excuse me, Polk County.
Well, I believe the big difference is that Polk County has this temporary hardship variance process that the city does not. So we can't look at this placement as a temporary situation. So I don't think that we can waive the fees per se as Polk County did under their temporary variance or temporary hardship variance process, which I believe has an ongoing application to make sure that that's a temporary residence. We don't have means to make sure that this would be removed, at least in our code.
Yeah, I'm curious because I can't imagine in today's day and age, this is the first time this has come up. Is there any history in the city about requests like this that have been also turned down and fees been charged?
I'll probably defer to.
Yeah, the Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. The best example that I can think of is the school district in Portables, where many years ago we talked about, with the school district about portables, and they actually pay SDCs for portables. And then when they're removed, they get a credit for the SDC, but they pay it. Another example is when the legislature was talking about moving out of the state capitol a couple of years ago to, or last year, because they were going to do the seismic. They were told, even though they were going to put up temporary facilities out on Marion Street, they were told that they would have to pay SDCs on those facilities.
Okay. Back to this question of a temporary hardship. You mentioned in your staff presentation that there were some exceptions to the rule. Can you tell me what those are?
In the staff report, exceptions to the SDC charges. There are some exceptions for existing dwellings that have been removed and had city services or had paid into SDC charges in the past. Because this property was in Polk County, and as we discussed, SDCs had not been charged because it was a temporary placement. That type of exception wouldn't apply. So we have gone through the exceptions in Chapter 41, and unfortunately this example does not fit any of those exceptions as far as we can tell.
Okay. And I'm curious, what if the request, and I don't even know if it would need to be a request, but what if the appellants wanted to bring in a 32-foot fifth wheel and place it on this slab? What would the city require?
From an SDC standpoint, probably nothing.
Yeah, there's limited.
There's no building permit associated with that.
Okay. And again, that makes sense to me because of the non-permanency aspect of a fifth wheel. My last question, I think, is for legal. And I'm curious, can the council approve a deferral of charges with conditions?
There's nothing in the methodology that allows for a deferral, but the methodology was adopted by council through resolution. So if, through this appeal, if council in its wisdom feels that suspension or waiver of the SDCs is the route you want to go, you can do that.
All right, thanks.
Councilor Anderson? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Glenn, did you want to answer?
If I may, Glenn Gross, the Community Development Director, just for clarification on the concept of bringing in an RV instead. There is a provision in the code that prevents or prohibits recreational vehicles from being used for permanent housing. So that I didn't want anybody to get the idea that that would be a viable alternative under our code.
Well, then let me ask, because this is a case that is, at least in my understanding, is not permanent. It is temporary. So an RV can be placed on a residence on a temporary basis. So how does this
not to be but not to be lived in. You can store an RV on the property, but you can't live in it. There's a provision for like if you have out-of-town guests, they are allowed to park in the city right away, I believe, up to I think it's 2 weeks in a calendar year, something like that. But it's very temporary. It's not semi-permanent in any way.
Okay.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you. I had a question regarding the accessory dwelling units, and I know they were still open for public comments recently. As far as being able to minimize system development charges, are the system development charges for ADUs similar? I know the breezeway has been brought up, and this is as a duplex as listed. Is there a way for this resident in Ward 8 to help minimize those SDCs by doing an accessory dwelling unit? Would it be the same charge?
Yeah. Well, let me take that one too, if I may. You're correct. We are in the public comment period, discussion period. in terms of the drafting of the accessory dwelling unit regulations. Those will be before City Council, probably sometime in March. And maybe as late as June. So somewhere in there. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but sometime
But
between
before
March.
the bridge opens, right?
Between March and June, it should be back before City Council. It should be in front of the City Council. One of the policy questions will be the imposition of SDCs to accessory dwelling units, and it may be that we bring to you a recommendation where, in some cases, they're applied, and in some cases they're not, depending on the size and the location and the nature of the ADU. We're in the middle of that discussion right now, and so I don't have anything more definitive to say, but that will be something that you'll be presented with.
Thank you, Director. And one other question as far as the fee schedule. The fee has been assessed and appealed. What's the time frame as far as our decision today at council? When will that be due for the claimant or property owner?
I don't think it's clearly laid out in the appeal section of Chapter 41, but I believe it's this evening that a decision is made. I have this section here.
Yeah, so
These are uncommon. We haven't had one.
He would owe, I mean, yeah, this is, I think, the second appeal we've had in the 30 years we've had SDCs, an appeal before the council. The SDCs are due at the time he pulls the building permit. So if he were to pull the building permit tomorrow, he would owe SDCs. Anytime that the council decides, you know, if you want to grant the appellant the appeal, then he wouldn't owe the SDC. If council decides tonight, then we know tonight. If council decides 2 weeks from now, then, you know, he could pull the permit and we'd reimburse him, or he could wait 2 weeks or however long it takes council to make a decision.
Councilor Lewis. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask you to hold off for just a minute. Councilor Nath. Apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And McCoy.
From what I just heard in regards to removing existing dwellings, you spoke of a SDC credit. If this is placed and when it's removed, would an SDC credit be granted then?
Right, so typically we provide an SDC credit for future development. Typically, we do not write a check back to the applicant. I will tell you that some of the discussions that we had with the legislature, with legislative administration, was that because that was, you know, those buildings were going to be temporary in nature, we were going to give them an opportunity that if they remove the buildings within, you know, we never got that far, but we were speaking, you know, if they would remove the buildings within 12 months of the legislature vacating those buildings, then we would have given them a reimbursement. If they started to use them for anything else, then, you know, then they're using it, and they would have had a credit for building something there in the future, but they would not have gotten money. For residences like this, we typically don't provide for that. This is a perfect opportunity for a rental unit later, a partitioning. You know, this is a residence. This is a brand new building, and therefore qualifies for an SDC.
And as a follow-up to that, have we ever waived an SDC?
We have not.
I didn't think we had.
I will tell you that the only other appeal that I remember was an addition to St. Joseph's Catholic Church, and the priests came out, and the council assessed the SDC.
Council did what?
Assessed the SDC.
Wow. Go ahead.
Okay. Peter, you get back to you talking about a credit, you know, for the portables. How was it? A total credit, a partial credit? How'd you calculate the credit?
Yeah, so it's charged similar to this situation, and then when the portables are removed, they basically get a credit towards the installation of the next portable, and they don't move them very often.
Yeah.
So,
and if they didn't, if there was no, so you got a credit sitting there. But was it for if it was $3,000, it was a $3,000 credit?
Right.
Okay.
Sure. And in fact, the credit is assessed at the current SDC value, not what was paid.
Okay.
So,
and then you've got the I'm assuming without the breezeway, this wouldn't be allowed.
That's a
So-
community development question, but that's correct.
And is this a creative way to allow it by building the breezeway? Because it strikes me, to call that a duplex is a big stretch when it's an outside breezeway with not,
I would concur with your term creative, yes, but it is legal. It does meet the definition under the code of a duplex if it's attached.
and so the breezeway then therefore says that's attached to the
Yes.
house.
Okay, both of them.
Okay, so I guess just as a philosophical thing, it seems to me we've got creative to allow the duplex. So I'm not sure, I'm not uncomfortable getting creative and giving them a waiver, just for what it's worth. And finally, should we have a hardship variance in our code? If this is once every 30 years, I suppose not, but it would make it a lot cleaner than this.
Is that a question? Or
That's a question.
Okay, because I'm happy to answer that question, Counselor. I would recommend that you not have that, and here's why. We have worked very hard to not be the use police when it comes to SDCs. We get appeals all the time about, hey, I'm building a 50,000 square foot building, but it's only one person. Well, you know, maybe 2 years from now, it's 500 people sewing in there. So we've worked hard to not be the you know, you don't have to come back. You pay it and you're done, and then you do whatever you want. From an SDC standpoint, you do whatever you want with that building. And so it's the same thing here. You know, I accept what the appellant is talking about. I'm sure it's true. 6 months, 2 years from now, whatever it is, that can turn into something else. They don't have to come back to the Public Works Department and say, oh, hey, now I have something different, or now they have to, it's just there, it's a building, and they can use it for whatever they want. They don't know.
So following up on that, we could then, if we chose to do this, put conditions on this waiver, such as, you know, if and when it becomes vacant, it will be removed within, pick a number, 60 days.
But would it go into probate if it's something
Well, yeah, I mean, but it will be removed, or it can't be, I mean, I understand you could be, you know, this day and age, it could be an Airbnb rental, but, you know, or something like that. So, you know, if conditions were put on it, is that something that would make it a little more palatable?
I don't know. Well, I guess for removal, I'd turn to Mr. Gross. I don't know how we'd be able to enforce that. I mean, once they've pulled a building permit, they have a legal building there. They can do with it as they choose. I mean, the way we've operated with building permits and SDCs is you pay your fees, you build your building, and then you do whatever you want with it. The city doesn't come back and ask you.
Yes, and I would just add.
Have the city attorney respond as well.
Just a short clarification on the hardship variance. My understanding is that the hardship variance they obtained was for the zoning code restrictions. Whatever Polk County's SDC methodology is and whatever they assess for different types of uses based on their SDCs is a different question.
And just to, I don't mean to overstate this, but just to be clear, under the zoning code and the building code, if this is permitted and built this way, this will be a permanent structure. Right. And the right to use that runs with the land, not with the person that happens to own it or occupy it today.
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Director Gross. I want to follow up on this whole duplex issue, and I'm particularly looking at your memo of January 3rd, 2017, which is on the back of the council packet. The way I'm understanding this is if it was not a duplex by the magic breezeway we've got, then that second dwelling would not be allowed on the land because it is one lot.
That's correct.
So you were trying to help these folks out by saying, hey, we can't do anything if you just want to plop down the manufactured home there unless it is a duplex or unless you split the lot.
That's right.
And it would be possible for and now I'm looking at your point you just made, once the building permit is out there and once it's all hooked up, it's there forever. So it would be possible for the next owner of this entire lot here to come in and say, I want to split this up into 2 tax lots, and then the new manufactured home would end up being a new home that was built without any SDCs being paid.
Correct.
Because at the time of split, you couldn't go back and retroactively and say, but you have to pay for these SDCs that might have been paid 10 years ago. That's right. Okay, then, does Polk County have SDCs?
I don't know.
My understanding is they don't have SDCs, at least the way that we do.
Okay, so the waiver was not SDC waiver, it was zoning code waiver to allow 2 buildings on 1 lot.
Yeah, I think that's a closer.
Okay, so then anybody who was in Polk County and had a development and then came into the city limits, if they never paid SDC payments for Polk County, they're not going to pay SDC payments for the city.
Once they're annexed, they're
Yeah, yeah. Under the same theory we just talked about, you can't go backwards and say we want to. Then, you know, I looked at the figures that Ms. Dahlke put up on the board there of stormwater $600, parks $4,237 and some cents, transportation $1,900.53 or $53 and some cents. You know, I can see the appellant's point here that this particular person is not using parks. I can see the point that this particular person, while she may be engendering more trips because somebody's going to be taking her someplace, the particular person who lives there, you know, is not going to be doing trips. Now, stormwater, that's another issue to me because they're going to be using the stormwater. So, Counselor, with that as kind of a preface, and I assume that under what the city attorney said, I mean, we could theoretically say we're going to assess SDCs for this one and not that one, and this one and not that one. Correct, Dan?
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay. So Counselor Lewis, I thought, gave an extremely good explanation of the individual case versus the common wheel, WEAL. And I'm wondering if you, Director Fernandez, or Mr. Powers, or somebody could, you know, expand and expound upon that as to why, in these sort of situations, the city has determined not to look at each individual situation on a case-by-case basis, but instead look at the system overall and then ratchet that down to each individual application.
Right. The very simple answer, Counselor, is, you know, Ms. Dahlke showed you an example of how we do the methodology. These are global methodologies so that we can apply them as fairly as possible using professional standards and professional publications that come with it to not get too technical. So that's how they're applied. They're globally applied based on what the generalized impact is for growth divided by the cost of providing the infrastructure on a global basis. We don't even separate out by parts of town. This is the entire city. So that's the methodological answer. The application answer is I come back to we don't want to intrude into either a person's life or what the business is operating. You know, 50,000 square feet of industrial generates this much SDC, a single family home generates that much SDC. Today it's an elderly lady. Tomorrow it could be a family of 4, you know, with 4 cars and you know, kids. We don't care. Once you pay, it doesn't matter how you use that facility from an SDC standpoint.
And what would your department have to do if you looked on each one of these on an individual basis? How many more people would you have to hire?
We'd have to increase SDC significantly just to administer them.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Then one final question. This relates back to what happens whichever way we make a decision. I understand if we waive, there's nothing happens, but let's say we uphold your opinion. Is there some way to stagger these payments? Or are they going to be due tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock?
Go ahead, Robin.
So we still have the Bancrofting option, which is a no-interest loan, essentially, with the city. It's a period of 150 days, no interest on that payment. And then biannual payments are due after a 12-month period. They have 10 years to pay it off.
Okay.
It accrues interest after a given time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. No further questions? All right. The appellant, Captain, you have a chance to reply to anything you heard. If you'd like to have further comments, you've got 7 more minutes to have at us. No, you have to come up, though. And if you would again say your name and...
Richard Chesbro,
Thank you.
2277 Orchard Heights, Salem. Just a couple of responses. First of all, we're trying to do the right thing here for a lady that really needs help, just like my mother-in-law did. We're not in this to make money. We're not charging her a nickel. Our property is, by the way, is already divided. We have the property that our house sits on, and then I don't know if you can see that chain link fence that comes down right over the top of the new manufactured home, comes right down there. That is a separate lot. So we don't treat it as 2 lots. We treat it as one, but it is subdivided as 2 lots, and it's shown on our deed that way as a separate property. We've been told by the annexation process that our entire property could be sold, and there could be as many as 5 dwellings on the property. Now, to me, that's a development. That's not just what we're doing. That's a development. And then, of course, it would be multifamily and so forth. Our next-door neighbor has even told us that if we ever get approached by any developer, he's in the mix, too. So, and his property's the same size as ours. So who knows what's going to happen in the future. Right now, we're just trying to help an elderly lady out, and we're not in this for any ulterior motives whatsoever. I just want to make that part clear. There was something that Councilor Nanke said that I wanted to correct, and I've just lost it. That's what happens when you turn 76. Your memory gets to go. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say on that.
Great. Thank you, Captain. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to close public hearing. Councilor Lewis, what's your pleasure?
Go home. I'm going to move the city staff work on an agreement with the property owners that will include, but not be limited to, the following conditions. SDC charges will be deferred until the emergency is over, at which time the unit will be removed or the SDC charges will be paid.
Is there a second? Second. Second by McCoy. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would. It's one of those things, which side do you want me to argue on, and I'll do it. There's nothing more important than to protect the methodology of things like the SDC and how the city implements them. The idea of treating SDCs on an individual basis is insane. My contention is this isn't a dwelling under the definition that we apply SDCs for. This is something different. We've heard from staff that it happens infrequently, at best. And I have 2 goals in the motion, and I think both are possible. One, to protect the methodology because it is as fair as it can be. And 2, find a solution that is maybe just outside the box. I'm not looking to have the property owner get away with anything. I don't think that it's a good idea to assume that they're doing what they say they're going to do and then not look at it down the road. Thus the agreement. But I sense that this is a situation just like the last one, where it'll be there for a while for a specific intention, and it'll go away. Under my motion, if it doesn't go away, then the fee is due.
Any comments? Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Now, I'm under the impression that once we grant this waiver, if we were to grant the waiver, even under the condition that Councilor Lewis has made in his motion, it won't go away. I mean, it runs with the land, not with the structure on the land. So would that mean that any succeeding owner for that particular parcel would not have to pay SDCs, while of course if they divided the land up into 5 lots as they could, they would be paying SDCs on 3 of them, not on the one of their existing home, and also not on the one that relates to what we do here tonight? That's a question for staff. And I base this on Mr. Gross saying, once we grant it, it's granted.
So if I could maybe answer that, and Peter can correct me, the SDCs are based on when someone pulls a building permit based on what's being constructed. So it's based on this unit. It's not based, so if they come in later on to further develop the property, they'll pay SDCs in the further development.
Yeah, or already has it.
Okay,
No,
just
but it's existing construction at that point, so they come in for subsequent permits, then.
Okay. And then is it legally possible to do what Councilor Lewis proposes, that is defer them to some later date and then either impose them if the building remains or not impose them?
Well, there's nothing in the methodology that, my understanding, there's nothing in the methodology that would allow us to suspend them or to defer them. However, there is a provision in the code for appeals of SDC imposition to go to the city council. The city council can
do what we want to do. We're not bound by the code in this situation.
Well, this isn't code, this is a resolution, so it's a little bit different.
Okay, okay.
Councilor Lewis, if I may, I wanted to ask a question. I'd like to understand again your motion, just to hear how it, I tell you kind of what my thinking is. Are you asking the staff to negotiate this, or does this have some triggers in it that just...
Not negotiate, but come to an agreement with the provision that the charges will be temporarily deferred.
Yeah.
Until the dwelling is removed when the emergency is over. If that doesn't happen, then the SDC charges would be due. My main point is, because I think it's just as important to protect the methodology of the SDC charges. I don't see this as the typical permit pulling SDC charge initiation. I see it as something different. And I have the opinion that we should have some kind of emergency clause. You know, I'll put it this way, I don't want to think that Polk County has a bigger heart than the city of Salem. And we're not taking anything away from the city by doing this, we're just postponing it. And if in fact the dwelling stays, then the charge stays. If the dwelling removes, because it really was there just for the specific purpose, then we haven't unjustly charged these folks. And that's my opinion.
I just want to try a suggestion on you, just to see if you think this makes sense. This really is an appeal to the city council. And I think that at that point, the city council ought to say, you know, we're going to suspend imposition of the SDCs and on a condition. And the condition is that dwelling unit is out of there in 30 days or you owe us $6,000 because it's there. You essentially have said decisively this is what the council's direction is, rather than, I kind of hate to put the Public Works Director in the position of negotiating this, that it has to reach an agreement. It has some I'm not sure what that all means. He doesn't agree with this. I think that we ought to start from there. This is not the direction. I'm not sure we're headed the right direction. This is us. We're saying, we're going to suspend this. But we want this dwelling unit at the time this situation ends gone, or you're going to owe us $6,000.
And the reason that I talk about, because this is a unique situation in my mind, the reason I talking about an agreement is I want the property owner's name on the agreement also, because if it's just the city saying what they're going to do, then maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. If they have a stake in the agreement and are agreeing to follow the rules, then that ties them closer to what the council wants, at least in my opinion.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And do we move to amend a motion?
Not yet. We're working on it right now.
All right. Sorry. Point of order.
We're about to here.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So my concern with this is that usually when appeals are filed, it's because criteria was not applied correctly or was interpreted as not being applied correctly. And in this case, it seems that the criteria was applied correctly. It was appealed twice. So I'm having I get it. I get the hardship, but I also want to make sure that our process is consistent for everybody else after this case. And that's what I'm concerned about, is the more we make exceptions to our process, the more difficult it becomes to apply that consistently in the future. And in this case, I feel that while it's a hardship, both financially and kind of emotionally for the family, that this is our code, this is our criteria, and this is what it is. And if there's a problem with that, then we need to look at possibly changing that. But I want to make sure that we have consistency going forward.
Yeah, thank you. The only correction, I want to repeat the city attorney's comment. This is not a code. This is a resolution. This is pretty. Yeah. This is something that we actually have some control over and can actually respond to individual case if we choose to. Councilor Mackey.
Yeah, and I'm opposed to the current motion on the floor based on the several reasons, actually. I mean, if this goes forward, we will see a multitude of these come at us down the line. We can't determine and say, when is the emergency over or when is the dwelling unit vacant, because an offspring could move in to assist with care into that unit again. And if it was purchased and now the property of said offspring, who's going to force them out of a dwelling that they now own, an ill person could get married and have a spouse in that house with them as well. Not necessarily that would happen in this case. And then are we on death watch? Whose decision is it to say, when is this emergency over? I mean, it could be 1 year, 20 years. There are impacts associated with that dwelling unit as well, whether or not we have some kind of a reimbursement if we remove a dwelling. That's an entirely different avenue inside of the entire SDC matrix that's not in place in our codes either.
Sorry.
With that, I would make a substitute motion for to affirm the Public Works decision to deny an appeal.
Second.
Councilor McCoy.
To Councilor Nanke's point, I guess now in motion, again, and I think Councilor Lewis has thought this out fairly well. When you ask who's going to track this, who's going to enforce it, Councilor Lewis's point is, if there's an agreement, whether you call it a contract or written agreement, something that the that Mr. Chesborough signs and says, I'm going to do this, within 30 days. I'm going to, within 15 days, I'm going to notify you that this is empty, and within 30 or 40 or whatever, it's going to be gone. And you've got some kind of legal contract or document with them to have them do that. That, to me, answers a big part of your concern. Because otherwise, I do agree with your concern. If we just go, we're waiving it, or we defer it, and there's no, we got to go track it down, and we're going to have somebody going out there checking it out. It's clumsy at the best, if not really unenforceable. But I think with some written agreement, that's not the case.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Councilor Cook?
I got one more comment,
Lewis?
and this is something I've said before. We have a rule, if the goal is to follow the rule no matter what, then the rule is being used as a club. My impression is that whether ordinances or codes or laws, that they're used to guide us as decision makers, not to control us. And I believe this is a case where that flexibility is warranted. So I can't support the motion.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to speak with staff, Ms. Dahlke, you had said that there is the bankrupting option of delaying payments up to a 10-year period, 12 months of which are interest-free.
150 days.
So just to kind of expand on that, the duplex is completed, payments are delayed, and the duplex then disappears. What happens to the remainder of the payments? Outside of the 10 years? If the building is then gone?
It's a lien against the property, so my understanding that would stay with the property until it was paid in full.
Thank you.
To clarify, the payments wouldn't be deferred for 10 years. They'd be no interest for 150 days, and they'd be due within the period of 10 years. So just annual payments.
The biannual payments over a period of 10 years until it's paid in full is the agreement.
Okay. Looks like everybody's ready to vote on Nanki's motion. Okay.
I am not going to support the motion. I guess, I had a mother here that passed away 3 years ago that we had to bring down here to care for. Wasn't quite, but she had Alzheimer's. And in our day and age, I think what these folks are doing is not as common as you think it is. And what they're doing is admirable. They're helping somebody in need. They're helping an elderly person in need. I'm not going to vote for something that really puts them out. I applaud what they're doing, and I would like to support it in some manner. This is a one-off thing. It's the second time in 30 years we're hearing here. This is not something that's a common occurrence, and I think that's why it comes to us, and we can deal with it with a resolution and not really change fundamentally any of the systems we have in place.
Councilor Nanki?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of to speak to that, it's the second time because people know that we don't waive SDCs, and so they don't bring those appeals forward. That being said, and I can empathize with the situation here. You could add on to the house, correct? There's a multitude of different options. You could remanipulate the interior of the home to add an extra bedroom where there wasn't one before, depending on timing. If this goes forward and more come in, then you have a contract that says, oh, but nobody else but this one person can reside inside of that dwelling, and you start getting really wonky with restrictions and language. And in the interim, there are transportation impacts. There is a stormwater impact. So does that mean they would never take her to a park? How do you measure any of these in any future scenarios as well, and I can't find that place when there's other options.
Okay,
So what motion is on the floor right
the
now?
motion is staff recommendation.
Well, there was no recommendation, it was to affirm, deny, or...
Yeah, to affirm the staff.
It was to affirm the Public Works Director
I'm sorry, to affirm the staff.
to deny
position.
a waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
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 Noes? Bennett, Lewis, McCoy. Okay. Motion passes. Right? Okay. Okay, we'll go on to our good news, our second public hearing. There's no announcement. This hearing is closed. There's no further testimony to be accepted. And it is solely now in front of the City Council to consider adoption of the written order as the final decision. Councilor Keizer, what's your pleasure?
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, would you like to speak to your motion?
I thought it was funny the hearing's closed as I come into it. I really didn't have any comment other than it seems like there was the last council conversation about this, there was concern about modifying the neighborhood plan and the designations on it, and that seems to have worked itself out, so.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of Councilor Keizer's motion to accept the staff recommendation, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. We are to special orders of business. Councilor Cook, you are up.
I can't open the attachment for my motion.
Uh-oh. How would I do?
Could I borrow off Councilor Lewis's really
Could you?
quick?
I can't hear.
I was just going to borrow
Oh,
off
okay, yeah.
Councilor Lewis's for, this is the poll.
Yeah, this is your
Okay.
poll, 3.3C.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wanting to make sure that
Be sure to make your motion.
I would like to make a motion that staff research shared use agreements with the school district for transfer of lands when those happen.
That's not the issue here.
Yeah, move the staff recommendation.
Yeah, move staff.
to staff recommendation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now, I would suggest try starting with a question of staff, kind of see where you want to go with this thing.
I would like to ask the Director of Public Works if there are plans for shared use agreements right now in transfer of properties.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, there is. There's an existing shared use agreement. It's not so much for properties as it is for buildings. That agreement expired a couple of years ago. We've been working to renew it. Just issues with staffing and having other things to do, both on the district side and the city side. But that is actively being worked on. We hope to have something completed, drafted, and to council this spring or summer. Council a few months ago adopted the agreement where we split all of our properties. In fact, what you have before you was in that agreement. So what you have before you is consistent with the agreement that the council adopted a couple of months ago. And all this is right here is a memorandum of agreement with the city and the school district about how we're going to manage the creek and being able to access the creek from both the district side of the property and our side. But we are working, to your more specific concern, we are already working on that and plan to have it back to you soon.
Thank you.
Good. Any further? Yes, thank you, Councilor Anderson.
Director Fernandez, Pringle Creek doesn't just go by Judson, it goes, I think, by South Salem High School, and I know that the SCAN neighborhood group is with, I don't know, the high school biology club or something, has done a lot of planting and stream cleanup there, and then it ends up down in Bush's Pasture Park. So is what you're working on just about Judson, or will it also include when the creek passes through South Salem High School? Because I see the maps are just about Judson.
Right, so this memorandum of agreement is only for this planting area.
Okay.
And what I cannot answer for you, Counselor, which begs the question is, do we have other? I know there has been other work done by J. Gems and other middle schools and high schools at different parts of in other parks and in other creeks and other banks. I don't know if we have these same kinds of agreements, or were those just one-off projects.
Well, I just want to say that I think this is very good, and I would encourage whatever agreements we can have, because I think it really helps the city's waterways, and it also is a good project for the school children, and it's another good example of cooperation.
Yay. Excellent. Councilor Nanke.
Thank you. How would this impact Pringle Creek Watershed Council if they wanted to assist in some of the vegetation activities then? Or
I do not know the answer to that question. I would imagine positively, but I
Of course you would. Do you have a different opinion, Councilor Nanke?
No, it was just
okay.
whether or not the Watershed Council is involved and knows what's happening here, and how they would fit in which side, because they're the kind of their own entity and not a part of the city.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to help, they could certainly help. This agreement is just between the city and the school district for this particular project area. So if the Watershed Council had other projects or wanted to assist in this project, then we would work it under this agreement. We haven't heard from them.
I think I think Councilor Nanke's also suggesting maybe we do a little outreach there and let Pringle Creek Watershed
if they know what we're doing
there. Yeah.
And then two, if there was actually somebody who wanted to, because it's contracts and project contractors. Well, volunteer isn't a contractor, and how would we deal with volunteers, or would we not be encouraging volunteers inside of this particular rehabilitation?
I don't know the answer to that. This is when Director Fernandez sits here and says, when the staff offered to be here tonight, I should have said yes. Instead of saying, no problem, you can stay home.
Could you share though these questions with Mr. Bechtel? I think what the councilor's getting at is really an interesting point, as well as Councilor Cook's point. So,
and we'll send the response, Councilor.
Excellent. Thanks.
Or send the council a response and just let you know what was the Watershed Council advised of this, and what are the limitations?
Great. Okay, are we ready to vote, everybody? Everybody in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Oh, we're in luck now. Mayor's motion, huh? I move the city, where is my motion on this thing? Just a sec. It just takes a minute. I got all excited seeing this stuff coming.
What do you get when you get all that paper on your desk?
God, I know, I should be
wish I had
using
paper, because
my little iPad I've gotten used to. I move the council direct staff to prepare amendments to the Salem Revised Code to better allow transportation network companies such as Lyft or Uber to operate in Salem.
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. We have been over this issue. We have made changes. The changes did not successfully result in Uber or Lyft deciding to come here. I think with changing the council, with the opportunity to take a new look at this issue, I'll tell you, we've all been through it. The transportation, and I think Mr. Lynch made some really good comments on this. The transportation system here, transit here, has its issues, and this would be something I would like to take a look at. And I'm not saying you're voting for Uber or for Lyft or against Yellow Cab, or to tell that here's the insurance plan or any of the rest of it. I think what we need to do is get a new ordinance in front of us to give us an opportunity to look at this issue. The system we currently have doesn't work, and I challenge anyone to produce any evidence that this current system of transit or hailed or call for ride services is currently working, and I want to talk about it again. I think we all would like to talk about it again. I think it's an opportunity. Doesn't mean you have to vote for it later, but I think it's an opportunity for you to go talk with your constituencies. I've talked to all your constituencies in my campaign for mayor, and what I got back most consistently was transportation here does not work for whole groups of people in this community and situations that any of us can find ourselves in. So I'm just asking you to let the city staff, this is really asking for permission for the staff to do a little work on this and bring it back to you so you can see what an ordinance looks like. You can analyze the fact situation, you can analyze the need, you can spend time with your constituency and determine what you think we ought to do with this. It's just an opportunity, and I hope you'll join me in moving this forward. And I thought the questioning today was really good. It'll be really good when we actually have an ordinance in front of us and we can kind of see what's going on. I think right now it's just an idea. And there may be really answers you don't like or you like, but I think we need to get it in front of us again to really have a discussion. That's really what it's about. So I'd ask for your support. Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion itself just says to prepare amendments with no specificity as to what those amendments might be.
Well, it is specific, and it says it would better allow the network companies such as Lyft and Uber to operate here.
But better allow, but they may still say no because we don't have the right amendment, specifically the background check one, inside of that. So I'm assuming those items would be included in said potential amendments?
Well,
go ahead.
If I may, if this motion passes, per the wording of the motion, staff would contact both transportation network companies to determine what amendments would more encourage them to serve Salem, and those would be brought to council for your consideration, and that's where the policy decision would be made. But we would contact the transportation network companies to determine what amendments would be more conducive to their doing business in Salem.
Okay. Just knowing that we were in Austin for a NATOA conference last year, and essentially they had done similar and discontinued Lyft and Uber, and a company called Fasten was operating there, only 2 places in the nation, Austin and Boston. But there's others that aren't as, a lot of the cities that don't have them is because of that same deal on the background checks. And there are some other up-and-coming transportation network companies that are willing to do that. And it was a matter of timing, if I recall, that we couldn't turn around those applications fast enough to get their drivers into the system. So, I mean, I'll vote to have
the discussion
it looked at again and brought back, but if it's still somebody else's background check that you can't know if someone is actively under investigation, then I still have some concern, but we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay. Anything else? Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I have similar concerns to Councilor Nanke. Having said that, I'm going to vote for it too because I think we've got our new council, we've got our new mayor. It's fine to look at it again. I've got a couple concerns. First one, we did this a year and a half ago. I remember I had meetings with Mr. Gross, and I'm sure each one of the councilors had meetings, and we changed our code. And it says, what has happened in the year and a half? The only thing that's happened is Uber and Lyft has said, we don't like to change this to your code. So, you know, I think we need to look at who's driving that, the city or the companies. I also was kind of curious about what the city manager said in terms of they would, the staff would talk to the TNCs. I don't know what that stands for. Okay. You know, but I would also suggest you might want to talk to the existing cab companies too, because I think the concerns we had last time were two. First one is safety, second one was just for a level playing field. I'll call that for anything else. And the final concern I have is I really don't think this addresses the transit problem, because you know, people who take public transit, which is not operating in the evenings and on the weekend, are not necessarily the people who could afford to pay for Uber or for a yellow cab. So we're not addressing that need that needs to be met in the community too, albeit I understand we can't do that because we're not the transit district.
You'll be happy.
Yeah.
You'll be
Yeah.
happy.
So I will vote
We're gonna
for
make
it.
Salem
but
great again.
Awesome, more awesome.
I will vote for it, but I am keeping a real open mind about whether I will vote for whatever comes in again, because I don't really see anything's changed except that somebody says, we don't want to follow your code.
Great.
I want to be very, very clear with council. The motion as moved this evening is very specific in what staff will do. If that specificity is too narrow for council, I would ask that be.
I will do that.
It would be.
I move to amend the motion to add that the city staff will also check with the existing conventional taxi companies.
That's fine.
Yeah. Will you accept it as a friendly amendment? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, sorry.
First meeting.
We'll go ahead and vote on it. We'll go ahead and vote on your amendment. Anyone want to comment on the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Amendment passes. Okay. So now talk to the cab companies too. Okay. Yes, Councilor Keizer.
So I'm going to vote for the motion, but wanted to echo some of the concerns here, but also just, I think the Austin case, while it's a different city, different state and all of that, it's an interesting example. I was there about a year and a half ago, and Uber, everyone relies on Uber there, and to such an extent that Austin really hasn't invested a whole lot in their public transportation. Now, when the background check issue came around in Austin, the Uber, Lyft, and these other companies, they threw millions of dollars into their campaign to defeat it. Ultimately passed, and Uber and Lyft and all of them just left. And what happened is it left a lot of people in a lurch because they had come to depend on these companies to literally get to work every day because their bus system and other things were in such disarray. So I think it's a cautionary tale for Salem that this is a complementary type service, not a replacement.
Fortunately, we don't have a transit system in place that can get anyone to work either, so we're in pretty good shape right now. Sorry. It's getting late, you guys.
Yeah.
I told you what happens.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, to follow on that, to fill that void, there was actually 4 or 5 different transportation network companies that came in to fill that gap. I only know the name of one of those.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a very good suggestion, though, to look at that. All right. Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, next motion. It's a mayor's motion again. I move the council increase the city manager's salary by 5% retroactive from November 1st to 2016.
I second.
The city council's met in executive session. We've reviewed the manager's performance. We have discussed issues with the city manager. We also have met individually. Not all of us have. I know new members haven't had an opportunity to yet. You will get that chance over the next year. But what I will tell you is that the review of the manager's performance resulted in very high marks. a very positive reaction, I think, from all interviewed. And given our agreement with the manager, this would be the appropriate action. We will get to do this every year. We now have, and this is something new, we have a very good process, I think, now in place. We've done a great deal of work over the past, I don't know how many years. The 9 I've been on, probably Nanki's 50, I don't know however many he's been on, but we finally have what looks like, I think, a really good process for evaluating the manager, for making corrective action with the manager, to deal with the manager's salary, and so I hope you will support this and become involved in this evaluation process next year as well. Councilor McCoy?
Yeah, Mayor Peterson, we served on a committee, I think it was Mayor Bennett, myself, and Councilor Nanke, right? And with a consultant, and worked out basically a pretty, I thought it was a real thorough way to go through this review, and did it, and you can see attached to this, if you looked at that, there was, I think, 18 people filled out a survey that's also attached with the ratings, and you can see the ratings. The high was 6, so it was 5 1s, 5 2s, 5 4s. He scored very well, and to go on with that, the mayor charged me as she was out of town for 3 weeks with basically following up and ending up this process with the city manager, and sadly for him, he had to sit down with me and go through the final review. He still hasn't recovered. You can tell he's turning pale as he thinks about it. But he has no problems with this. I think, as he told me, and it says it here, he appreciates that. He took the recommendations we had for improvement to heart. I've seen some of the things he's applied some of them already that we discussed that I gleaned from the process. So I would urge you to see, done a great job. I would urge just that we vote yes on this.
Councilor Anderson.
I had the privilege of going to Ann Arbor, Michigan, about 1.5 years ago for on-the-ground vetting, and I'm only coincidentally wearing my Michigan-themed University of Michigan tie tonight. No, I did not, but I did buy a T-shirt that said Michigan that I have worn around. And I will tell you, uniformly, the people I spoke with there were pleased that Steve was being considered and was being offered this job, but were very disappointed and sad that he was leaving, and basically said what a good, we were stealing him from him is the feeling I got, and I think they're right. And so everything that I saw on the ground there and talked to people, both people within the city and people outside the city, was uniformly high in the praise, and I think this review is reflecting of that.
Okay, yes, Councilor Nanke.
And I was on that site visit as well with the former mayor and Councilor Anderson. 100% agree with the comments that were made there. And in regards to the process, it took previous ones for the, depends how many times you count Bob Wells, 7 or 8 city managers so far. It was always really subjective and
or not done.
This system is hands above the previous, and so looking forward to moving through that process and evolve it as needed over time.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Information reports. Councilor Anderson.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I just have a question on the first one, which is 6A. I'm looking at Mr. Gross, condition 1. and I went through the first report of the summary and then the others, and I think we've got kind of a mistake. I'm looking at the bicycle plan. Condition 1, construction of bicycle facilities, they've given them 2 options, but one option is the applicant may provide bicycle facilities providing a connection from Maple Avenue Northeast, which at the southwest corner of the site, to Cherry Avenue Northeast at the northwest corner of the site. So are we really only talking about bicycle facilities along Maple Avenue, or do we really want to say, you know, Cherry Avenue is at the northeast corner of the site, not northwest corner of the site?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
right.
we're going from northwest to northwest, but Cherry isn't northwest, Cherry is northeast. You know, so, you know, what are we talking about? Yeah, I see Ms. Anderson Ogilvy there has a surprised look on her face.
If I may, Councilor
Yeah, please.
Anderson, I think that I'm reading this cold, but
Yeah.
I think it's an or. I think it's either construct the bicycle facilities on Cherry Avenue or make the connection. There's a disconnect on Maple Avenue there. So the street isn't, the street doesn't connect.
Well, is there a connection running along Auto Group Drive?
A
See, because
connection-
they have either, they construct bicycle facilities on the abutting portions of Cherry Avenue Northeast, Maple Avenue Northeast, and Auto Row Northeast. So that connects everything. Or, in the alternative, construct something from Maple, the southwest corner of their property at Maple to the southwest, to the northwest corner of Cherry. Cherry is not on the northwest corner, Cherry is on the northeast corner.
So you'd like him to fix that?
I certainly would.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know which they're going to do, but then it becomes pretty problematic to me, because if you're going from the southwest corner of the property at Maple to the northeast corner of the property at Cherry, the only way you do that is go up Maple and across Auto Group Northeast to Cherry. Or you go through their property, which they're not going to want, or you go along the south side of their property to Cherry Avenue and then go north to Cherry Avenue.
Could we, I think you've got a really good point. I think you all have captured what the problem is. Could you get this corrected to?
Or explained.
Yeah.
One way or the other, but get this corrected or explained to bring it.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Councilor?
Yeah, that's fine, that's
Okay.
fine. I'm not opposed to, I mean,
No,
I love the idea of bicycles, and I know because I swim at the Croc Center, and it's kind of problematic to get, if I go that way, to get through it, and I don't want it to be even more problematic by the incorrect wording of this particular
That's our
condition.
condition.
You'll get that fixed
We'll get that figured out.
Okay, good.
And bring
And
it
then if
back then
anything-
with an explanation?
Well, we'll either, if it's correct,
Okay.
you know, we'll send you out some information. If it needs to be fixed, then we'll figure out how to fix it.
Okay, and
get
either
it
way, I prefer to hear back from somebody as to how we're
yeah,
going to
we
do
will.
that and what's going to happen.
Okay. Anyone else want to hear back on this one?
I also have to say,
Let everybody know.
yeah, I also have to say I like the idea of a bicycle path through a car dealership.
Huh. Okay. Any other questions on these information reports? Very good. We'll go to ordinances, first reading. Ready to go?
Ordinance Bill Number 1-17, an ordinance relating to a change to the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan map designation for an 11.88 acre property at the 700 block of Auto Group Avenue Northeast.
Councilor Ossek, your motion.
Motion to staff recommendation.
Second by Nanki. Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion at all? Okay, great. Would you like to speak to his motion?
Well, no, I just have a question now that we've got this question. This is what we just talked about, right? This is what we just talked about. So are we going to pass this?
No.
Yes, yeah, it is. So are we going to pass this with the mistake in it? Or how does that work?
This is the ordinance to change the comp plan designation. The information report is, it's a separate item, so you're okay.
This allows them to go ahead with their, yeah, okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Unanimous.
Ordinance Bill Number 21-16, an ordinance relating to a change to the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan Map designation for 560 Glen Creek Road Northwest and 585 and 635 9th Street Northwest.
Councilor Keizer.
I move staff recommendation.
Second by Nanki. Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Somebody else second, come on.
No.
Okay. Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Second readings.
And this changes every reading, so it could be you.
Engrossed Ordinance Bill Number 24-16, an ordinance vacating an easterly portion of right-of-way for Liberty Road south of the intersection with Rainier Drive southeast, and declaring an emergency. Councilor Keizer.
There needs to be a motion first to engross the ordinance.
Oh, do we gross? What do we got?
No, second reading.
It's the second reading, but he's
Just got to change.
Right, so in this is the vacation. We were just correcting the legal description, I believe, on this.
Okay,
this one.
so I'm reading your recommendation. So I move that we engross ordinance bill number 2416 and conduct second reading of the ordinance bill, which vacates an easterly portion of the right-of-way for Liberty Road south of the intersection with Rainier Drive southeast, subject to the condition that an easement be reserved for the construction, maintenance, repair, and replacement of municipal and utility facilities, and declares an emergency.
I second.
Second by Anderson.
For efficiency, I'm not going to wait a long time.
We'll get the hang of it. Just
Counselor,
hang
do
on.
you want to explain, or do you need to explain?
I don't.
Just as means an explanation. This was just correcting the legal description that happened when the issue was first initiated, and this just has the correct legal description for the area to be vacated.
Okay. Any discussion? Well, actually, that was it. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Whoop. Even on the amendment? That's it? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Councilor Keizer.
Oh, aye.
Oh.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
Councilor Osick.
Aye.
Councilor Cook. Aye. Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, what else we got here? 7.2B.
Ordinance Bill Number 23-16, an ordinance designating the Ed and Marie Viesco House located at 2060 High Street Southeast, Salem, Oregon, as a local historic resource.
Okay. You want to call a roll? Go ahead.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
Councilor Osick.
Aye.
Councilor Cook. Aye. Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Keizer.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We're to our final public comment. Is there anyone who wanted to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Are you guys sure? Okay. All right. Then, without objection, this meeting of City Council is adjourned.
call this meeting of this Housing Authority of the City of Salem to order. Recorder, please call the roll.
Commissioner Keizer?
Present.
Commissioner Anderson?
Likewise.
Commissioner Nanki?
Here.
Commissioner McCoy?
Present.
Commissioner Osick?
Present.
Commissioner Cook?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
There we go. So first order of business is we have to elect from among our crew here a vice chair of the Housing Authority for the City of Salem. Councilor Nanki, you have a motion for me?
I do. I would recommend Commissioner Lewis to fill the position for vice chair.
It's moved and second, moved by Councilor Nanki, seconded by Councilor
Commissioner.
Osick to nominate Commissioner Lewis to serve as vice chair for 2017 for the Housing Authority. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, you ran a great campaign, I'm proud of you. You're vice chair again for another year. We have any public comment? We have no public comment. Anybody here that wishes to speak? Nope. It's easy. One person will ask. Mr. Lewis, you have a motion for me on the consent calendar.
Yes, I do. I move acceptance of the consent calendar, which includes the minutes from December 5th and also the minutes from December 12th, and it also includes the program management report.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Having no other business.
Wait.
Whoop. Jim, Commissioner
I'm not sure whether
Lewis.
to put this in the consent calendar or not, but it's always nice to hear from Andy, and I know he stayed, so hopefully you've got something to say to us, or...
A new appreciation. Don't put my meetings last.
I do have things to say. I just wanted to update a couple activities on Yaquina. So we're refining the construction scope, talking with investors and funders. Moving through the, beginning to move through the land use process, on pace for submitting applications to the state for Oregon Housing. And our schedule refining, but generally 2017 through the month of September will be our due diligence, getting ready to go, executing our finance the first of 18, and then completion of the projects September of 2018. I had a couple other items that I wanted to bring today, but they got delayed a little bit. One that you'll see in the upcoming meeting is an exemption for competitive bidding. We're going to ask for a construction manager, general contractor, so that's a process that has about a 14-day window, as you know, for public process. And we also have which I pulled last month, is a public housing plan, and I know you see that a lot. We have to modify as HUD tells us to modify. In this case, the PHA plan will most likely be modified to include all of the RAD components. We believe that we're very close to getting our notice to move on the RAD that we put in last February, rental assistance demonstration with HUD. So I think we could have quite a bit of activity concurrent with Yaquina and South Fair.
Commissioner Anderson.
You know, in the past, Andy, first of all, I already congratulated you on Yaquina in the council meeting, and I repeat that, but in the past when you've come before us, we've had trouble with HUD because they're a little bit slower at the federal level than we are at the local level in terms of doing what we want to do. Plus, there's always an issue with the vouchers and the amount of vouchers and all, you know, what they allocate is less than what the market needs here.
Correct.
So I'm just curious, after January 20th, Andy, are you going to anticipate any changes in HUD regulations and rules coming down that could make it harder for you to do your job and to actually provide housing for the people in the city who need it?
Yes. I won't make any political statements, but
Well said.
there's a lot of new leadership that that may have different viewpoints, and that can be, I think, problematic, my personal opinion. I do think on the appropriation side, we're going to be fine for rest of this year. That's all. But next year's annual appropriation is anybody's guess.
Commissioner Lewis?
Just to counterbalance it, if for some reason down the road there were fewer rules and regulations, would that be okay?
That would be, yes, sir. That would be perfect. And actually, the last 2 years, HUD has done quite a bit of streamlining. I'm not certain that we're going to get to the implementation, though, of those 2 years of streamlining. They seem to be slowing down a little bit. We would take as much relief as we could, and certainly as much money as we could, if given. So.
Okay, any other questions? Andy, you got anything else for us?
No, sir.
Commissioner Nanki?
I'd just like to say I always appreciate the family self-sufficiency updates, and Ruby did a screamer job on moving through the program at full speed ahead. And I just want to congratulate her, if she's watching, or anybody who knows her, for basically getting out of the assistance program in a year's time.
Right. We haven't talked a lot about personnel, but Steve's aware of this. Over the last 2.5 years, the agency has lost 105 years of capacity with 3 managers. We filled all those positions, a lot of HR. And we've got a 4th position coming up, Grace McCabe, who's retiring, and that would take the total years lost up to about 130 years. So we're doing well, but we're, you know, making do, and there's a curve here. If you see anything that appears to be slower or not exactly accurate or something else, please let us know so we can make the right modifications.
Okay. No other questions? Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. No special orders of finished business, unfinished business, or new business. This meeting is adjourned.
Call this meeting of the Salem Urban Renewal Agency to order. Any additions, deletions? Councilor McCoy?
Yes, there is. Got addition. We've got a revision on 4.3B, revised report and attachment. And we had what we've already done, election of the vice chair, which we've already taken care of, was added to it also. No?
Okay.
No.
We don't do election of vice chair for this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Picked up the wrong one.
Pursuant to URA rules, the council president is automatically the vice chair of the URA.
Thank you, though, for that. Is there, we have a motion on the floor then?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
No. The additions and deletions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got a motion on the additions and deletions.
We do. Okay, I move approval of additions and deletions to the agenda.
I second.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
We're going to get through this.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any public comment? What? Nobody signed up, but
What?
you're it.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Extra credit.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, if you need any slips signed, we're all here to sign them.
He's here, he's my witness, so.
Okay, great.
Are you giving testimony or anything?
The consent calendar.
Oh, I was ready for that. I move approval of the consent calendar with the following pull. 4.3A by Councilor Anderson.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. What we just passed, by the way, was the Urban Renewal Agency budget calendar. And now we have no information reports. Special order of business is 4.3A. Councilor Anderson, do you have a motion?
I move we authorize the use of $100,000 of West Salem Urban Renewal Area funds for the proposed West Salem Business District Zoning Code cleanup as recommended in the West Salem Business District Action Plan.
The staff recommendation then.
Yeah, well, I like it. It's such an important one.
Don't want to miss any piece
No.
of it, though.
I'd like to second.
Thank you. Councilor Cook seconds. Okay.
All right, I have some
motion?
questions. And I will say that Director Rutherford and I exchanged emails and voicemails today and didn't get everything discussed. So I guess the overall tone of, the theme of what I'm talking about is a lot of this discussion says, for example, in the alternative, it says, this alternative does not remove the need for a third vehicular bridge across the Willamette River, and it says we now have more certainty regarding the Salem River crossing having things been posed. So I'm operating under the assumption that the bridge project is moving forward. And then I have some questions about how it, in fact, might affect things. And I guess I'd start with the Main Street area, because in the Main Street area, you know, it's talking about everything we're going to do to Edgewater, but my understanding is if the new bridge comes in, there will be significant change to the south side of Edgewater in terms of whatever's going to have to go in there, and I believe it will be an elevated roadway taking up some of the space on the south Edgewater. So how does that relate to making the Main Street area a Main Street area and the improvements that have already been made on Edgewater?
Kristen Rutherford, Urban Development Director. The action plan and the language that you're referring to, there is language in the action plan that does make reference to there being more certainty about the third bridge. There's also language in the action plan on page 14 of the action plan that says the analysis, the traffic analysis.
We don't have page 14.
So you don't have the entire action plan as a reference.
Okay.
So I'm going to cite back to the entire action plan. So on page 14 of that document, there is a reference that says that the traffic analysis in the action plan, and as we're moving forward with this action plan, it's being based on a model where there is no third bridge. There's references saying that because of the funding issues with the third bridge, uncertainty as to the timing of the third bridge, that would be relatively far out in the future, that the analysis and recommendations of this action plan are being based on what we know today as the current situation, which is not taking into account the
If I could draw an analogy then, it's the same thing with the development. that it was on the north end of Wallace Road where the bridgehead comes in, and it's going to take out many, many houses that were, I think, 14 that were built within the last 5 or 6 years. And so the same thing is true here. Are we going to proceed to make the developments on South Edgewater with the potential that if the bridge comes in, it's going to wipe out those developments?
So what is before you tonight is related to the zoning code
Yeah.
and streamlining that zoning code. So there could be development that could go in now under the existing zoning code that would still be under the same potential impacts if
Yeah.
a third bridge goes in. So what is there today, or what would be approved today under the current zoning code, would have the same potential impact of a third bridge as what may or may not happen if we
Well, maybe
revise
yes,
zoning
maybe no. If you were developing someone had something in mind on Edgewater and you knew there was this potential, are you really going to even now want to sink your money in? So I understand the difference between this is a zoning issue, but it seems a little incongruous to say this is going to be Main Street when there's going to be an elevated roadway there. Then I guess I would ask the same thing about improved connections to the river or park. That's another thing on the Main Street area. And I suppose the answer to that is we're going to have the 2nd Street underpass, which might be an improved connection. But it's not going to be improved going to the south and east from where we are. It's just going to be improved going to the east. And I guess the same thing is true with the, what do we call it? The town center area. I mean, we show the town center area here as a nice little red, and then there's this green of the park. But once again, if the bridge comes in, we're going to have an elevated roadway separating the red from the green, which I don't expect you to answer this, it's more a comment, but how is that going to involve improved connections to the river and park with that situation? Then I guess the final one, and this is a question that I would like you to answer, is I'm looking at this little small map on, I'm not sure, page 5 maybe of our packet material. I can't see, it's underneath the page 5. None of this takes, other than the fact that there's the plan for some connection of 2nd Street or 2nd Avenue under Wallace. It doesn't really take into account what we have been shown of another potential of coming off of the bridge and circling almost 180 degrees going backwards to connect up to Marine Drive. That's not included in anything we're talking about here.
That's correct, because this is all based on a situation of no bridge.
Okay,
Current situation.
yeah, current situation, because what we just talked about has nothing to do with the bridge either, according to what we've been told. So is the $100,000 study, is that will not then be looking at anything related to the bridge, nor anything related to the additional potential of the 180-degree U-turn almost coming back to go to Marine Drive?
That's correct. This
Okay.
study is not looking at transportation infrastructure. It's looking at existing zoning code and how we can streamline that
Okay.
to allow more flexibility within.
Well, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to, just for a second, correct. There's no design for a bridge in place right now. So I certainly appreciate your comments, but I don't want anyone watching this to be confused that there is a design that has anything like what you described in place. Councilor Nanki.
Everything I've read says it.
No, it doesn't, actually. You've seen an EIS, that's all you've seen.
And a worst-case scenario on
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
things, so
I really
no
gotta
clue what's
object.
going
I'm
to.
sorry.
But my question was, as I read through this, the material had moved through the West Salem folks 2015, and then August of last year is when, so the time lag of half a year, why?
The action plan moved through and was adopted in December 2015. Then the first step of implementation of that action plan was tied to the transportation analysis in the action plan, and that was to conduct a feasibility study to look at the transportation recommendations in the action plan, which is the crossing of Wallace Road, that east-west connection. So that's one of the projects that was identified in the action plan. The action plan looked at multiple things. It looked at infrastructure. It looked at the market in West Salem. It did a hotel assessment. It did the transportation analysis, which was that first project, that feasibility study. It had a craft industrial business analysis. Right. And it also looked at design guidelines. So the second project, implementation project of this action plan, which is now what we're moving forward with, is a look at the zoning code. So how we can streamline that, how we can make it more flexible. There are a number of overlays that are in the West Salem area. You know, how can we maybe eliminate some of those? Are there base models of zoning code in other parts of the city that we can use to replace those overlays so that we're kind of more consistent throughout the city and it's easier for property owners and developers to understand it and move forward with development? So that's the purpose of this second project.
But essentially, have we been working on other things to kind of figure out how we want to do this between August and now?
Between August, so up until the summer, through this fall really, was all focus on the transportation analysis and the feasibility study, which was adopted this fall. Now that urban renewal amendment has been completed, the staff is now shifting focus to the second project.
All right, thanks.
Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, maybe a comment, Chris and I. The time lag wasn't really a lag, it was time spent on the parameters in the discussion about that crossing at Wallace at 2nd Street. And it was a very interesting experience. Kind of reminds me, if you go around the room and ask everybody their opinion, when you get back to the first person, they change their mind. But that's what took the time. It did, as she mentioned, did eventually get done and get passed. And now the next step is utilizing that. What zone changes can be made to affect the West Salem plan.
Cool.
Anything else?
Yeah, let's affect it.
Great. Ready? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Do you have affectation?
And I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go.
Is that it?
Mallet in hand?
There's no objection, we're adjourned.
Yes.